webFBTW provides you with tools to connect your SiteProgress website to several Facebook social plugins as well as multiple Twitter feeds. Let's take a look at how it works. To access webFBTW, you'll need to be in the Plugins tab on your admin, and then go ahead and click on the webFBTW icon to open the interface. We'll start with Facebook. There are three types of social plugins that you can create. They are Fanbox, Recommend button or Like button, and Activity feed. An important note before we continue, there are actually two different types of Facebook pages. The first is a personal Facebook page, which is the one you're probably most familiar with, but there's also a Facebook page for business, and that's called a fan page. And that's what you need to have to work with these particular social plugins. If you don't have a fan page yet, you can build one easily with Facebook. We'll go over here to their login page, and here you see the area where you can sign up for a personal Facebook page. But down below the sign up button here, there's a link that says create a page for a celebrity, band, or business. And so if you click through here and do the sign up, what you'll end up with is a fan page, which is basically a Facebook page for your business. Okay, so now let's go ahead and create some social plugins. The first is Fanbox. We'll go ahead and select that and hit the build button, and that'll bring up our builder interface. Here on the left is an empty Facebook Fanbox, and on the right is where we'll populate data to personalize it. The first piece of information that we need is a name. So this name is not going to appear anywhere on your website, so you can name it whatever you'd like. So I'm going to go ahead and call this SiteProgress Fanbox. The next piece of information is the profile ID. Now that's the unique ID code for your fan page on Facebook. So let's go and take a look at the SiteProgress fan page. This is it here. And if you're just in the Wall tab, you can go ahead and go up to the location bar here where the address is. And after this character's here that says ID equals, there'll be a string of numbers. And that's your profile ID. So you want to grab that and highlight it and copy it, and then come back over to your admin and paste that into the profile ID box. Next, we can define the size of our fan box as it will appear on our web page. So I'm going to head and change this to, let's say, 600 wide by 500 high. And then the final piece of information is connections. And that basically is whether or not you'd like to show people who have liked your fan page. You don't have to, you can set this to 0 or leave it blank, but you can have a maximum of up to 50 people here. So let's go ahead and put in 10 for now. And now we can preview our fan box before we save it if we'd like by hitting the test fan box button. And then we'll show up over here. And so at the top here, it's populated the box with information from the SiteProgress fan page. That's right here. And then below here are the connections. And so it'll populate as many as it can based on your parameter. Now you'll notice here that the box doesn't seem to be completed, so I need to make it a little bit taller. So we'll go to 550 and test that. And now we've got the bottom of the box. So here we have a fan box that's completely built out. So we can go ahead and save that. And that will put it in the Facebook list. Here it is. And it will assign a unique code. And it's this code that we will actually place on the web page that we want the fan box to display in. So what we need to do is simply copy that code, the entire thing. And then here on our test site, I'm going to be working with this page called Styles. And we're going to go ahead and put this fan box right in here. So let's go back to the admin and we'll pick the Styles page and the main text area for that page. And then here's this paragraph, and I'm just going to paste in that code right in between these two paragraphs. And that tells SiteProgress to look at this unique code and place that fan box there. So I'll go ahead and save that. We'll come back over to the Styles page and refresh it. And we'll see, sure enough, here we have our fan box placed right into our page. All right. Let's go ahead and take the fan box out of that page since we're going to just keep using this page on this demo. And we'll go back over to the webFBTW plugin and let's build the next type, which is a recommend button. So we'll select that and click on build. We start out with the default standard layout. So here we see the recommend button itself, and then Facebook adds this text with a count of the people who have recommended and this little piece of notification text here. There are three different types of layouts. We'll look at those in a minute. But the first thing and most important thing that you need to understand about a recommend button is that it is page specific. So in other words, When someone clicks on a recommend button on a page, they're recommending that particular page, not the entire website, just that page where that page exists. So it's important to define what page the button is for. And you can do this here where it says page, and you go to the select page pull down, and what you'll see is a listing of every page that's on your website. Of course, in this case, we're using the SiteProgress website, so it's those pages. So since we're working with styles, we're going to pick the style page and make a recommend button for the style page. So we'll select styles. Okay, so now we have a layout choice. There's three. There's standard, box count, and button count and box count. The standard layout, you can add faces, which is similar to the connections in a fan box. So in other words, it shows icon, usually little photos of people who have recommended that particular page. That's only available in the standard layout, not in the other two. You can also change the verb of the button from recommend to like. You probably see like a lot. You can use either one, recommend or like, depending on which you prefer. And then finally, Facebook offers two different color schemes for their buttons, light and dark. So let's go ahead and leave it in the standard mode, and we'll go ahead and say we'll change it to like and go to dark, and we'll test this just so you can see what that looks like. So here you see it's changed from recommend to like, and it's got this gray color scheme, which is their dark color scheme, and still the standard layout. Now we can look at the other layouts here. If we go to button count and test that, you'll see that this basically just gives you the button itself and a count of people who have clicked on that button. None of this text is available. And same thing with box count. It's just a different layout. It's more of a stacked layout with the count here and the button below. Now these last two that I just showed you are good if you're going to be putting your like or recommend buttons over here in the sidebar area of one of your pages. That's a better layout to use. The standard layout is too wide with that text that Facebook provides. So you can use a standard layout over here on this side. But if you have a page style that's got one of these and you want to place it over there, you want to use one of the two smaller ones. But let's go ahead and use a standard layout. And I'm going to go back to recommend and like. And I don't need to look at it again. I'll just save it. And now it's added to our list. And again, a unique code is generated for that particular button. So I'll copy that. We're going to go back into the styles page because that's what the button's for. And then in this case, I'm going to put it at the bottom of the page because that's normally where these types of buttons appear. So I'll just paste in its unique code and hit save. So now when we go back to the styles page and I'll refresh it, we'll go down to the bottom and we'll see recommend button is there and this text from Facebook. So again, you can put recommend buttons or like buttons on every page of your website if you'd like to. But again, you just need to make sure that you define each button specifically to be for that page. All right, so we'll take that out and go back one more time to webFBTW and build the last type of Facebook social plugin, which is an activity feed. So I'm going to select that and click build. And the activity feed uses the domain name of your website and marries that to the fan page name. So Facebook knows what it's dealing with based on the domain name. SiteProgress already builds that in for you dynamically, so you don't need to include that. So the first thing that we need to do is just give it a name. And again, this is a reference name. So I'll call it SiteProgress AF for activity feed. And now we can size the box again, just as we've done with the others. And then again, there are two different color schemes. We'll look at dark. And then show recommendations. We can decide to have that or not, and that basically shows the people who have liked your fan page. So let's go ahead and test this by hitting Test Activity Feed. And here we'll see the box. Now we'll see in this case the dark color scheme from Facebook is actually very dark. So let's go ahead and go back to light and make sure that that's what we want. And then we can go ahead and save that. And then just as with the other two, we get a unique code that we want to copy. And we'll go ahead and put that in the styles page, back in the same place where we had put the fan box earlier. And I'll save that. We'll go out to the styles page and refresh it. And then we'll see the recent activity. And so Facebook updates this activity automatically for you based on what's happening on your fan page and website. All right, so let's take that out and let's move on to Twitter. So we'll go back over here to webFBTW and we'll go to the Twitter section, which we can get to by coming up here on the sub-nav and clicking on Twitter. And now we'll see here there's nothing built yet, and we have a builder here on the right-hand side. So the first thing I want to mention about this before we get started is you may not have a Twitter account. And if you don't, that's fine. You may still want to consider using this tool. Why? Because you're not limited to displaying your own personal Twitter feed. You can display anyone's Twitter feed with this tool. So there might be Twitter feeds out there that are relevant to your website content. That might be a value add, if you will, to your site visitors. So you might want to think about that because you have the power to put in, again, any Twitter feed from anywhere into this tool. So that's what we're going to do in the demo. And I'm going to use the three major news organizations, network news organizations, to do the demo. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create some groups. And I'm going to create an ABC group. Oops. And then I'm going to create a CBS group and an NBC group. And I'll show you in a minute what these groups actually do. Okay, great. So we have three groups. And now we're going to go and actually put some Twitter feeds in and assign them to groups. So you need to have the name of the Twitter feed, and that's easy to find if you just do a Google search for the Twitter feed you're looking for and go to their homepage. The name will be right there. So let's go ahead and start with ABC, and its Twitter feed happens to be ABC News. So we'll go ahead and add that to the ABC group, and we'll do the same thing for CBS, which their name is CBS News. Most of these Twitter feed names are pretty logical. And then finally we'll do NBC, and it's NBC News. Okay, so now we have the various Twitter feeds and their associated groups, and we're all set. The only thing we have to do now is build the actual box that will contain the information, and that's done here in Settings. So the first thing we need to do is determine the number of posts or tweets that we're going to display for each feed. So let's go ahead and say that's going to be 5. And then we can build the box size. So let's go ahead and say, well, we're going to make this box 600 wide and 400 tall. And then we can define a background color. Now I'm just going to pick a color right now, and I'll show you where that's placed in a minute. And then the same thing with show menu. I'm just going to select yes and hit save. And when I do, it will be built over here and will show us a preview of what we've selected. So now we can kind of understand what each of the elements are. So what you see here is a menu that's been created, which is this show menu, yes or no. And the first tab is all, which is dynamically generated by webFBTW for you. And then there are 3 tabs, and these tabs are for each of the groups. So if we click on the NBC tab, we see all the NBC tweets, CBS, ABC. And then you'll probably also notice that there's color behind the tweet text, and that's that background color. So we can change that to whatever we like, or if we don't want a color at all, we can just make it white by simply changing the color and selecting save, and it will update here with our new color. So again, we can decide whether or not we want to have the menu here. If we set that to no, then basically all the site visitor will see is this, which is the all feed. So it's got all of the tweets in one scroll. And you can also notice that if there's more tweets than fit in the height, it automatically creates a scroll bar. So you can set this to whatever size you want. So let's go ahead and put that menu back. And then we'll go ahead and drop this in. And the way to add this Twitter feed to a page is we need the code for it. And it's right here. It's always the same because there's only one Twitter feed box. And it's TW equals 001. So we want to copy that. And again, we'll go into styles in the same place. And we'll go ahead and paste it in the same place we've been putting stuff. And so I just paste that code in and hit save. So now if we go back to the styles page one more time and refresh it, we will see our Twitter feeds just the way we saw it on the admin side. Again, showing all the tabs so that the visitor can either look at each feed independently or they can look at all of them at once. So you have that complete control over Twitter. All right, that's webFBTW. If you have any questions, please feel free to send us an email at support@siteprogress.com.